And the Supervisor Richard Forster with your biweekly report from our Board of Supervisors meeting on March 25th, 2014. You might wonder why it's biweekly, because quite a few years ago when things slowed down, we went to 2 meetings a month instead of 4 meetings a month, or a meeting every week. We don't have the volume of things going through the county, and a week like this is indicative of that, with only about 3 items on the agenda. But first up, under public comment, this ties in with one of our agenda items. We had Judy Jamie in from the Amador County Historical Society. Judy was in to tell us the progress that they're making with the Amador County Museum, which the Amador County Historical Society, led by Phil Giuliani, took the bull by the horns and went in and negotiated a deal with the county, fixed the museum up, and got it opened back in June of 2013. Since that time, they've had over 1,900 volunteer hours contributed at the museum, with docent hours and with people doing work, actual work on the museum. 850 visitors have come through the museum. Their hours now are 11 to 3, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they have several goals that they're aiming towards. One is to get more agricultural items in the museum or around the museum on the grounds, and they want to do a comprehensive inventory of items within the museum. Now, one of our agenda items had to do exactly with the Amador County Museum, because it involves the Rab Collins estate, and this involves items, most of them antiques, that were donated by Alethea Rab Collins to the Amador County Museum. The problem is the trustee of the estate got involved along the way. There was a piece of property that was supposed to finance a new wing on the museum. Thanks to the trustee, he has negotiated that away, gone to court, and that has gone someplace else, but it didn't come into the estate, and the county did not get that money. The insinuation was made during the hearing on Tuesday that the county got this big chunk of money and nobody knows where it went, and that the county got many more artifacts than what was listed on the inventory. When the different containers were opened, as John Hopkins, our county general services officer said, general services executive director said, what was in the containers was in the containers, and the property was given to the trustee for their purposes by the courts. We don't agree with that decision, but that's the way it is, and we did not get that property to be sold so that money could then go into another wing on the museum. The items that were donated by Ms. Rab Collins were a $63,000 appraised value. This was done by a professional appraiser who, I can tell you from her presentation at the meeting, Letha Hawthorne, is very knowledgeable on antiques, and antiques that are sought after around the country. Now, there was one set within this collection that was donated that could have significant value to it. It was going to be broken up because the Historical Society is asking for about $34,000 worth of antiques to be donated from the county, put on loan. They would still belong to the county and to the taxpayers, but put on loan to the museum. Those out of those items, there are 2 chairs that were part of a collection. The Board of Supervisors decided not to include those 2 chairs. They have different upholstery on them, but as far as the woodwork, they are exact chairs and they match a set. That set could be very valuable. We have to figure out how to market that the best way to get the most money back into the county system for our taxpayers and to benefit our museum and the Historical Society in the job they're doing there. The remaining items that were left out of the collection value about $29,000, so there will be some surplus items. Not all of them have significant value, but that set does. So the motion, and on a 4-to-1 vote with Supervisor Boitano dissenting, was to let the Historical Society take those items for display in the museum that they have requested, minus the 2 chairs, to use some of the proceeds from the surplus auction of the remaining items to help the Amador County Historical Society replace the sewer line that runs, that is basically shot that runs up to the museum so that they can have a functioning bathroom at that location. Our General Services Department will work with Miss Linda Hawthorne and figure out the best way to market that set. Initially, she said you might want to box it up, send it to some big auctioneers. You know, there needs to be a little bit of research done on this. But along the way, there were significant amounts of dealings with the trustee and with the court. And the reason we want to recover some of the money back that was spent, and that's taxpayer money, is because that amounts to about $41,000. So some of that money will be recouped and will come back in to offset some of those expenses. Other things that went on at the meeting, the Amador County Child Abuse Prevention Council will be having some activities coming up, but the main thing this day is they wanted the resolution passed to recognize April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. That was done by the board. The Child Abuse Prevention Council representatives gave a report. Erica Simmons and Tracy gave a report on the child abuse reports received for 12-13, 581 cases. Break those down. They go down into neglect, emotional, physical abuse are the most prevalent, and then sexual abuse, exploitation, and other come in with lesser numbers, but still significant. So these are complaints too. Supervisor Onetto did make a good point that he'd like to see how many of these cases are actually adjudicated after the complaints are made. The ladies present gave a report on the bowling for kids that Sue Ann and I alluded to earlier to honor a National Child Abuse Prevention Month and kick it off. Saturday, March 29th from 11 to 2 at Gold Country Lanes at Ridge Road in Sutter Creek. And all of that money goes into the Child Abuse Prevention Council to help with their activities. Other things, the period of purple crying to raise awareness of that first 2 to 3 months of a child's life when there are significant crying and the way that can wear on people's nerves and how you can try to deal with that so that no harm comes to babies at that point in their life. Very critical not to even think about shaking a baby or harming a baby in any way. And Celebrate Our Children, 16th annual event coming up at Argonaut High School. That will occur on Saturday, April 26th. Lots of things going on there for families, foods, crafts, music, all to raise awareness for child abuse prevention. 223-5921 is the number for the Amador Child Abuse Prevention Council, and you could also reach them on their website at amadorcapc.org. Last item up on the agenda was the Fiddletown Bridge. This is for a clear width construction staging criteria and the bridge replacement project detour. The recommendations from the consultant from Drake Haglin were actually he gave all of the options, but the recommendations were to stay with a 30-foot clear span bridge that would have 11-foot lanes, 4-foot shoulders. The detour that they're recommending is a 2-lane temporary detour as the preferred construction alternative. That would keep the construction season to 1 season versus 2 seasons, and it would minimize the duration of construction and also maintain 2 lanes of traffic all the way through. The problem with the others, one, they're more expensive. This is the cheapest alternative, with it running, if I can find my paperwork, at about $2.15 million. The other alternatives went from $2.2 to $2.5 million. Problems with the other alternatives, one of them was for a 1-lane detour. That would have caused significant problems with traffic flow, and it was a more expensive option than the 2-lane detour. 2-lane detour would take just a couple more items from a property owner. It seems like they'll come to agreement with that. It'll take a couple trees out, a portion of a retaining wall. All of those things can be replaced. They're smaller trees. The larger trees closer to the bridge, of course, have to come out. That the 2-season alternative was not acceptable to the board. Also the option of going to eminent domain, that could be a reality in the end, and the board will have to discuss that if it happens, but we're trying to avoid that as our board does not like to go the direction of eminent domain. 223-6470 if you have any questions at the board office. And at this time, we are going to a break.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TS.